Hi, my name is Harold Byrd. I'm here with Dr. William P. Foster of Florida A&M University. I am the Executive Director of the William P. Foster Foundation, and I'm certainly happy to have this opportunity to interview Dr. Foster, the Chairman of the Foundation, as well as Chairman of the Music Department Emeritus and Director of Bands Emeritus for Florida A&M University. And he's also an eminent scholar here at Florida A&M University. Dr. Foster, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Mr. Byrd.
It's good to have you here with us.
It's certainly my pleasure to be here.
All right, that's great. Dr. Foster, this is an opportunity for us to talk about your past and talk about some of the things you have in the mind for the future. Can you tell us, because a lot of us don't know, where are you from?
I am from Kansas City, Kansas, and my early schooling was in the public school system of Kansas City, Kansas, elementary, middle school, junior high school, and senior high school.
Okay. So you grew up in Kansas. You say Kansas City, Kansas?
That's correct.
And tell me how you ended up in music.
Well, it's a very short story, and yet it's a very long story. It began during the time that I was in Northeast Junior High School years, and I saved my money, and I looked at the area of the downtown area of Kansas City, and I viewed a pawn shop, and I saw an instrument that I liked, and I purchased it. And from that time on, I began my musical career. It so happens that it was a outdated instrument, a C melody saxophone, and I went to the Kansas City Conservatory of Music, where they said that it is obsolete, and they recommended that I purchase a B-flat clarinet, which I did, and then I started studying the B-flat clarinet, and the rest of it is history.
It's history. Tell me, when you were growing up there in Kansas City, I wonder how the race relations were there. Can you tell us how black-white relationships were in Kansas City when you grew up, and what time, what year, let's say, what, 1920s?
That's correct.
Okay.
We're speaking of really the period of 1930 through 37, and this is a period in which, right after the great fall in the financial status of the country, and everything was on hard times.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a period in which, so far as the races are concerned, it was just object segregation. I didn't know that really any other persons existed except black, because there was no mixing of the races.
Okay, so everything you were doing with your music career and just your general studies, all the work, everything you all did was just in your quarters.
That's correct.
Okay, now tell me, did you have very serious racial incidents up there?
No, everything was sort of the status quo. Everything was segregated. Everything that you went to was black, and there was no mixing of the races.
All right. Now, tell me about high school and from there how you ended up into college, and tell me about the college a little bit.
Well, my high school career was really a very formative period, and I thank my band director, Mr. Gastineau Saunders, for his interest in me, because I became not only the first chair clarinetist, but also the student director of not only the band, but the orchestra. And I was very much interested in the sciences. I was interested in physics, geometry, and mainly the subjects that involve mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, I never realized that that interest would stand well as I began my work in the profession of marching band and making formations.
Now let's talk about your college career a little bit. What school did you go to?
I went to the University of Kansas at Lawrence, Kansas.
Mm-hmm. Now when you were there studying music, were you able to participate and do all the things the other non-black students were able to do?
That was a very interesting story. I remember the night before, a friend of mine, Elihu Moore, we were scheduled to take our auditions for the music department and the KU marching band.
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, we went over to the stadium and we practiced all night and early in the morning. And the next morning we got up, we went to our auditions, and I had the surprise of my life because from the audition that I took, I knew that I had made it. Everyone else knew it who were waiting. And however, Mr. Russell L. Wiley, who was the director of bands, informed me that due to the racial situation in the Big 8 schools at that time, that I would not be able to become a member of the marching band because on trips I would not be able to go on that, and everything was completely segregated.
Okay, let me break in there for a minute. Did they let you in?
No, they certainly didn't, but I played in the university band, concert band, symphonic band, and also the orchestra, everything else that didn't involve travel.
Okay. Let me ask another question about that. Now, you were not in the marching band.
That's correct.
The whole time you were in school?
That's correct.
Because you were black?
That's correct.
But you did play in the concert bands and those kinds of things?
That's correct.
And what about going to class? Were you allowed to be in the classroom with other students?
Oh, yes. Full participation in all the classes. In fact, I think I received a superior education to the degree that on the weekends when various social activities were going on and they brought big bands, Benny Goodman, you would Stan Kenton, all the others to the Student Union building. We were not permitted to go to those social functions. However, I spent that time practicing and working on my music and studying, so it came to be a real plus for me so far as getting ahead.
Yeah. Now, when you were in that situation, however, when you were there and when you were not allowed to participate in the marching band and that kind of thing, being in that kind of an integrated yet somewhat segregated situation, how did you feel? Personally, how did you feel?
I don't think I had any feelings. Everything was just understood that you didn't participate. So therefore, it was just a normal situation.
Just a normal situation. What about dating?
I didn't understand you.
What about dating?
Oh, no, well, the only thing would be with persons of color.
Okay.
And we had our own society, our social activities.
Okay, so for the most part, it was basically a segregated type of situation in the social side of it.
That's correct.
And with the marching band side of it. But so far as going into classrooms and things like that, it was pretty much normal.
Oh, yes.
What about being called on in class, and how did the other students treat you?
Oh, I think they were just normal. Everything was fine, and after you left the university, everything became segregated again.
Okay, once you left the campus.
That's correct.
Now, did you have any white friends at all on campus?
Only in the classroom.
Only in the classroom?
That's correct.
Once you walked out the classroom doors?
That's right. That was the end of it.
You can only associate with black people?
That's correct.
Isn't that something?
No opportunities.
I see. That's pretty interesting. Then I'm kind of confused as to how did you develop this idea about this marching band?
Well, when I entered my senior year and at just about the graduation time, I went to the dean's office. I don't know what possessed me to go in and have a chat with him. And after ensuing conversation, he asked me what I planned to do in life after I graduated, and I told him I wanted to be a conductor. And his immediate answer was, well, you know, there are no opportunities for colored conductors in the country. And that set the seed for me to really develop my skills on my instrument and also develop a band, really a black band that would be as fine or finer than any white band in the country.
Now I understand that what the band director said, the person who was consulting with you at the time, about your opportunities. But I'm trying to get this feeling as to where this attitude. I know you felt you had a challenge in hand, and that you wanted to challenge what was said. But this marching that you have put into the developing the Marching 100 band. And that marching has been going on a long time, because I remember when I was a child, that band marched like that. I'm saying, did you think about that development while you were in school, or did you develop that idea of wanting a band to march like you have been marching today after you graduated and once you got to Tuskegee, or what?
I think that developed after.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a burning desire to achieve and excel. And one of the things, I didn't have any indoctrination, so I didn't know what was impossible or what was possible. In other words, whatever my dreams were and wherever they carried me, I attempted to put them into being.
All right.
And of course, our early band from the very beginning was an experimental band for that reason. We tried different things.
Okay. Tell me about the first job you got after you graduated, and then tell me how you evolved from that job and ended up in 1946 at Florida A&M University.
All right, and when I finished University of Kansas in 1937, I got a job at the Lincoln High School in Springfield, Missouri, and I was hired as a music teacher, hopefully to develop a band, but my main job at the first part was to direct the choir. I was very successful in directing the Lincoln High School a cappella choir to the extent that we were invited to the Missouri Music Educators Association, and I took that choir the second year to that convention in St. Louis, Missouri. Mm-hmm. With the band, I had to start off from scratch. No member of the school had hardly ever seen an instrument. And I went to Kansas City and other locations and went to pawn shops to get used instruments, little or nothing, and brought them back. And that's the way the band started.
You did a lot of things during that time that we are too proud to do now.
Oh, yes, I should say so. Not only that, but every Saturday from morning through the afternoon and night, I gave private instruction to students. And but we started off with very elementary music books and band books. I did have one great aide there, and that was a gentleman named Mr. Edward Peters. He was a former member of the John Philip Sousa Band, and believe it or not, I studied with him those 2 years that I was in Springfield, Missouri, because I wanted to learn the techniques of developing musicianship. And I studied the cornet with him because that was his instrument. He played cornet in the John Philip Sousa Band. And I got a world of basic musicianship from him, and I superimposed that immediately on the student members of the Lincoln High School Band that was just starting. And that following spring, after the first year, we gave our first concert. We had about 70 students in the band, and it was a revelation.
Yes. Now, from Lincoln, then you went to Tuskegee?
No, I went to Fort Valley. I got a job at Fort Valley State College as chairman of the music department, and again, I had a choir with no band, no music. I gave a few individual lessons on instruments, but things were too limited there to even think about developing a band, so I left at the end of 1 year. And the year that I left, I got a job at Tuskegee Institute, Tuskegee, Alabama, as director of the band and the orchestra. And believe it or not, my second year, great things happened because Florida A&M College came to Tuskegee to play the Tuskegee Tigers. And in the audience...
Was it in football?
Yes, in football.
Who won?
I believe...
Say Florida.
I believe Florida won. It's hard to tell, but although Tuskegee had, a very good team, and of course, it was known for its band even then. And in the audience was Dr. William H. Gray from Florida A&M College, and another gentleman, Reverend M.G. Miles. We went to an Alpha meeting that night, and after the Alpha meeting, I guess we were home about an hour. I got a knock on the door, and here was President William H. Gray.
Now, before you get into President Gray, what's the Alpha meeting? Because some people might not know what you're talking about.
Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity.
That's a fraternity.
That's a black fraternity.
Okay.
And
that's where you met Miles?
They came to the meeting.
Okay.
Both of them were Alphas, Dr. Gray and Reverend Miles.
Okay.
And it was about an hour after that they came to my home, and Dr. Gray indicated that he was interested in offering me a position at Florida A&M College as band director, and the reason for it was that he wanted to develop a band at Florida A&M University that could be used for publicity and public relations, so the college could be known. And he was very much impressed with the performance of the Tuskegee Institute Band at the pregame and halftime activities of that game.
All right, and then he came over to try to steal you.
That's correct.
That's what he did. He did a brother school or sister school band.
That's exactly
I know Tuskegee,
right.
Tuskegee, that's their laws. I know.
And so we communicated, and lo and behold, I ended up at Florida A&M College. Started June 1, 1946.
All right. Talk to us about what you found here. In reference to the music department and how you and Dr. Gray worked together.
The facilities at Florida A&M College when I arrived June 1, 1946 were very limited. There was no band room. The instruments were very limited. I think there were 16 or 17 broken down instruments. Some could be repaired, others could not. And we had to order new instruments immediately. And we had to also try to make provisions for a place for the marching band to rehearse, and also for the marching band to hold music rehearsals. Everything was very limited. I started from zero.
You started from zero, Doctor?
That's correct.
So when you got here and you found out that you didn't have any musical instruments, so you must have gone to Dr. Gray and discussed it.
That's correct. So, and he was very kind and understanding. We were able to get some basic instruments, especially sousaphones, trombones, baritone horns, percussion instruments.
Now, what about musicians, students?
Well, that was a part of our understanding when I came down June 1 that funds would be provided for some musical scholarships to enable talented young men to play in the band and to get a college education at the same time.
Now, was the war over at the time?
The war was just about over at that time, and many young men were just beginning to come back after getting out of their release from the Army. In fact, our first band had maybe 10 or 12 former members of the armed forces in the band.
Okay. And so did you have any females in the band at that time?
We had one or two females in the band. We also had one young lady who was a twirler. In fact, there were two who were twirlers. But however, at the end of the first year, I found that I didn't think they would be able to maintain that pace, and therefore it became an all-male band in 1946.
Okay.
47, I'm sorry,
okay.
1947.
And so once you got to, and how many was in that first year or so, about how many people did you end up with?
Only 45 were in that first band.
And so how did you come up with this Marching 100?
Well, it was my goal after I started was to have a 100-piece marching band.
Oh, all right.
And at the end of the third year, about 1949, I had reached that 100 mark. But due to the popularity of the band and the interest of young students coming to the university, we began to make additions to the instrumentation of the band, and every year it grew and grew and grew.
Now tell me, when When, in your mind, do you believe that the Florida A&M University Marching 100 Band began to step out beyond the other historical black band schools?
Actually, beginning my second year here, it began to really achieve, not only in marching, but also in musicianship and musical performance. The things that we were able to do, as I mentioned earlier, that the band has always been an experimental band from the standpoint of doing things that hadn't been done before, that were different. But it was all with the idea of improving the technique of the band.
All right. Now, Mr. Lindsey Sargent, your arranger for many years, said that you could always tell the Florida A&M University Band, even when it was way off in the distance, because of that distinct sound that it had. Because I could always, I know even when I was here, could hear those trumpets practicing in the morning, and they would be like an alarm clock, because the section leader would have them out blowing those fanfares and things like that. And then when you heard the band on the field and other places, you could hear that brass sound, and you know when the drums started off that you knew what it was. When did this distinct sound?
Because I can well recall with the my first concert band in the spring of 1947 that refinement was beginning to really be developed. The whole concept of a beautiful sound and a beautiful tone and ensemble blend and balance, the whole business of efficiency and execution of articulation, refinement, all of that started at that particular point. So really my first year, the band has begun to separate itself from all the other instrumental groups and bands in the country.
Now, let me ask you, I remember when I was a child, and I used to come up here with my father, and we used to look through sort of like a fence that was around the stadium at the time, because we didn't have enough money to come inside. And my concern, I didn't have a concern. My thoughts at the time was when I looked out on the field and the band started at halftime, and all that dust, and the band just seemed like it was just losing its mind. You know, you know, if you've ever seen a choir at church, you know, some of these holy churches that we have in the black community, we can get really loose in church, and people are jumping around and just, you know, doing their thing, and it sounds good, and it makes you, it sort of moves you, but it looked like people about to lose their minds. Sometimes, when I used to come out and look at the band used to get me so stirred up. I mean, just looking at the drum major running and jumping and doing the splits in the air, and the dust is flying, and those drummers just playing those cadence at the time. You had all that spirit in you?
Yes, I'll tell you what, I think we can add all of that up to one term, and that's enthusiasm. And there are two reasons for the increase in the tempo. Number one is that I found at the end of every rehearsal, if they had done a very good job in their performance and what they were trying to do musically and marching, seemingly the tempo began to move up faster and faster, little by degrees. But I think the biggest thing that the causation of the tempo increase was when we played at the University of Florida. This is about 1948, I believe. We played in the Gator Growl. And as you know, at our stadium on the campus of Florida A&M, we came on underneath a tunnel, so to speak, for pregame. And however, at the University of Florida, we would have to come from way outside the stadium and into the gridiron. And I began to develop some type of technique to overcome that. Number one is that we slowed the tempo down of the entrance, and then I decided that I wanted to make every member of the band look like a drum major. And that gave precision and exactness and order to everything that we were doing. And then we decided that we'd do a 45 and then a 90-degree knee lift. That 90-degree knee lift with the instrument movements coinciding with that. It was just a striking precision look. And then the next thing is that I said, well, we'll save the faster tempo after we get in the stadium. So we moved that up and around, and then the band was stopped and the band was announced. And then we would go into the faster cadence. At that time, I think our fast cadence was probably around 160, maybe up to maybe 180. And that's a big psychological change in tempo. And of course, the people would just go wild.
That's good. The Death March, where did it come from? And I love it. I've always loved it. Now, I think people just anticipate that it's going to happen. And where did it come from?
Well, I think the drum majors are partially responsible for that, because seemingly they began to slow the tempo down. I think at first we had a tempo of around maybe about half the tempo that we normally march by. It started about 60, and then we moved it on down to probably 36 and then 24. At that time, it was down to about 24. So it is a striking, it's very difficult also because it requires great dexterity and poise from the standpoint of each individual in the band. And the whole idea is for the entire band to look like one drum major.
Okay.
And then, of course, with that, when we stop and then the band is announced, and we break into a tempo that's approximately 4, 5, 6 times faster than what you just finished. That's just a striking psychological effect.
No doubt. Now, you must have had some mighty good drum majors in this band.
Oh, we have.
Now, I remember one when I came on, when I got here in 1965, you had a guy by the name of Big Red, I believe they called him.
Yeah.
He was the biggest person I'd ever seen in a band. And when he yelled, that band attention thing, he would scare people half to death, especially the freshmen. But he was he a good? He was definitely a good drum major. Was he a good musician as well?
Yes, he was. He was. I'm trying to recall his name right now, but I can't. His name is right on the tip of my tongue. But among our early drum majors is one individual who lives right here in Tallahassee. He was our second drum major, and that's Dr. Benjamin Grooms.
Oh, Dr. Grooms.
Dr. Benjamin Grooms was our second drum major.
All right.
And the first drum major, I'll bring his name to the fore here shortly, but he was a saxophone player, and he was from Jacksonville, and but he did a superb job. The first, I know who it was, Ike Morris. Ike Morris, and it was, we've just had a great cadre of outstanding musicians and leaders to serve as drum majors.
Now, when Dr. White came on, he was, in the reed section first?
Yes, he was in the saxophone section.
Okay.
And it was one of the few times that we ever gave out of drum majors. When the fall came around, I found out that we did not have a drum major available. Something happened to the 2 or 3 that we had anticipated coming back, and I said, well, this will never happen again. And in fact, the drum majors that year, I believe they were all saxophone players, believe it or not.
Okay.
But so for some reason, the best marchers in the bands have been from the saxophone section.
I noticed that, and I noticed how they twist that saxophone when they're marching.
Dr. White proved himself to be superior, and he was selected as the drum major for the Florida A&M for a college band at that time.
Now, what about Dr. James? What did he bring to the table when he came here as a student?
Well, he was very good in percussion. And as you know, I observe the best students that we have because I find that the individuals that I have trained are far superior to any that we could hire from the University of Michigan or any of the other big schools. Eastman School of Music, Ohio State, you name them. And because they have certain ingrained interests in the program,
so
dedication,
homegrown, huh?
Yeah, commitment, and but the main thing really is competence and that positive attitude, and those things you can't teach an individual. So, but they developed that here at Florida A&M University, and that's the reason why our entire staff and faculty in instrumental music and band are our own graduates. They went on to get their master's degree and their doctorate degree.
Now, I know that Lynn Sargent has been arranging for many, many years.
Correct.
Now, was he the first, and he also was in the band here, right?
That's correct.
Now, the arranger before him, was he a graduate of Florida A&M University as well?
No, his name was Powers.
Okay.
Richard Powers. But he was very good, and shortly after his decision to take another job, I decided that I wanted to learn and have our arranging staff to be updated in regards to the technical arranging. And Jerry Billick was the arranger for the University of Michigan band. And I got on the phone and I called him, and I wanted him to come down to Florida A&M University and give us his one-year course in arranging. And the way that came about, I heard an arrangement or music from the University of Michigan on a phonograph record. It was a very simple tune, but gee whiz, the music sounded like $1 million. It had interest, it had the type of continuity and the type of variety that I was looking for, and I said, well, if we can pick up on the techniques of Jerry Billick, I said, I think we'll have something. And lo and behold, when I called him, he would not accept any professional fee. He felt it was an honor to come to Florida A&M University.
So he influenced the program here quite a
bit. Oh, very much so. He came down on a Friday, and we had sessions Friday nights, all day Saturday, and Sunday through Sunday afternoon. And believe it or not, in that time, we got his entire one-year course in arranging.
Now, what was his name again?
Jerry Billick.
And he was from what school?
University of Michigan.
So the University of Michigan has had an influence on Florida University.
I should say so. And of course, my very dear friend and colleague of many, many years, Dr. William D. Ravelli, whom we honored here at Florida A&M University, he has had a very strong influence. In fact, I've considered him really my mentor so far as not only the marching band, but also the symphonic band.
Now let's continue with the thought. Bring Mr. Sargent into the picture. Was he privy to the training which was received?
No, he was. He came along after, but I was able to give him the aegis of the technique. And the aegis of the technique is simply this: the melody must be heard. Secondly, you need a good, strong counter melody, not to overpower the melody, but will contribute to the melody. And then third, you need to have what we call support harmony, or dovetailing of the sound, which gives it the middle balance. And then probably the third most important part was the bass line. Not a oompa, but something that's going to contribute a little bit more than that and have some melodic content and have interest. And for the rhythm, to always give that to the percussion. And that combination there, it allows you to be very creative in anything that you arrange, and it's going to sound like $1 million.
See, that's the FAMU sound, isn't it?
That's correct. That's it.
That's great. Can you have a flashback on what years, you consider the band to be the best in your mind. It's just excellent, and you felt good about it.
That is very difficult because each year we have actually improved. And the legacy of the previous bands were so very, very important that I certainly wouldn't put one band a year, ahead of the other.
Okay. That's good enough. I don't want to put you on the spot there because you got all your alumni listening.
Right.
Now, tell me about all of the awards the band has received. Of those awards, and there have been just so many, give me maybe 2 or 3 you consider to be the most impressive or the ones that meant the most to the band.
Well, I think the preeminent award was the Sudler Marching Band Trophy, which goes to the band that over the years has demonstrated and proven to be a band of outstanding merit. It is an award that was voted on by the Sudler Committee, and they send out evaluation forms or voting forms to all the band directors of colleges and universities in the country. So we were elected by the college band directors throughout the country of the universities and colleges. Incidentally, when we were awarded our citation in 1984, I believe it is, the one inquiry that statement that many made is that they were only surprised that we were not the first. The first band elected for the Sudler Trophy was the University of Michigan band. The second band was the University of Illinois. The third band was Ohio State University. And the fourth band was Florida A&M University. That's of all the college bands and universities in the country.
My attitude about that, Doc, is that, we should get it every year. That's been my feeling since I found out about that trophy.
It is only awarded one time.
One time.
One time.
Well, we're so outstanding in so many things. They may award it to us again. Well, let's hope.
No, I don't think so. It's just one time. That's all.
Okay, Doc. Now tell me. So that trophy was and that selection was really great for the Marching 100. Now, what is the next thing in your mind you see as being really of great value to you because of your selection?
I think the next citation was the invitation to go to Paris, France for the 200th anniversary bicentennial celebration in Paris, France. And one of the unusual things about that trip is that the country of France paid over $500,000 or $500,000, paying all of our expenses to bring 250 personnel members of the Florida A&M University Marching Band to Paris, France. We were there for 9 days, and it was just fantastic. In fact, even now, it's hard for me to believe that we were invited and that they paid all of our expenses. Such an event as that is really unprecedented in the annals of the band world. And the other interesting thing about that is the fact that at the pre-performance, which was the night before the bicentennial parade, Bastille Day parade, we were about third or fourth in the parade, but after that run-through, they decided they were going to put the Florida A&M University Marching Band last and give it the signal honor of being the honor band of the honor entry of the parade, because this band represented America in that parade.
Now say that again.
The Florida A&M University Band represented the United States of America in the bicentennial Bastille Day Parade in 1989.
I think that's great.
And another interesting thing about that event is the fact that it was 75, let's see, that's 89, no, in 1918, James Reese Europe, with his all-black band, paraded down the Champs-Élysées in Paris.
That was in 1918?
1918.
Uh-huh.
In 1918 or 1919.
And what was the name of the fellow again?
James Reese Europe, famous black band director.
Okay.
Well, anyway, here comes another great American black band down the Champs-Élysées, and that is very historic. And of course, the French love the music of jazz and black Americans. And you know, we couldn't play anything except the music of James Brown. They loved James Brown. In fact, they made all efforts that they could to get him out of the difficulty that he was in at that particular time.
Mm-hmm.
And but they went wild over James Brown, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I remember I watched some of
it. It was just fantastic. Our reception over there was unprecedented.
Yeah, I watched some of your performance on the television, and it was we waited and waited, and we were so excited when we saw Florida University show up on that television screen. We were yelling and screaming and jumping in Los Angeles, because I was in Los Angeles at the time, and it was just, I know for blacks in this country, particularly, it was just one exciting evening to see you all coming down that street representing the United States of America. And we are very proud of that moment. Now, that's two. You have another point of recognition that you see as?
Well, I think the third Super Bowl, where our band was featured in Miami, Florida. And on that occasion, the President Kennedy and his father were in the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And we had really a big challenge for that performance, because we came out of a formation of a horn of plenty. They had a canvas that looked like a horn, and we came out of that. And the show that we did was a sports show, sort of patriotic, and it was so well received by the audience. In other words, the technique of animated formations was a zenith of that, because I remember we formed an eagle, and we had the wings to flap, and it gave a sort of a...
Talk to us a bit about after you got back from Paris. Tell us a bit about the band in the 90s.
The band in the 90s, it was a great period for us. Of course, we were so highly received upon our return. I can remember the joyous celebration upon our arrival at the Tallahassee airport, a huge crowd there, and banners and everything.
Uh-huh.
And the publicity in the papers was just phenomenal. In fact, the band was on the front cover of most of the daily papers throughout the country, including the New York Times, the New York Herald, the Chicago papers, the Los Angeles papers, you name it. And of course, Tallahassee Democrat, they did just an outstanding coverage. In fact, we had one of the news persons, writer and also photographer, who joined the band on the trip from Miami to Tallahassee. And so we were really covered. It was just a great period. And of course, the band in the 90s, we continued the great legacy that we had in the way of outstanding performances, because we were in other additional television performances at pro games. And it was then that I believe our football team began to travel a bit more, and we had invitations, and I can recall that our performance in the Meadowlands in New York and other great stadiums throughout the country.
Now, a couple of more questions, then we'll be through with this segment. You were talking about when you started to march faster, and you were up to about 180 steps or so a minute. How did you get up to 360? That's the first question. And then the second part of that is that what is your vision of the Marching 100 in the future? How do you see it, and what do you hope happens in making it even greater than it is today? So talk about the steps per minute, and then talk about the future, how you see the Marching 100.
Well, the increase in the tempo of the band from 180 to 360, I think you have to realize that when you get up around 240 and 360, that doesn't last long. In other words, and that's only at pregame, and that's for maybe about a minute, minute and a half. And after that time, they're really exhausted. However, the way the increase there happens, the fact that according to the patronage at the stadium, the audience, the spectators, if they applaud wildly and they're enthusiastic and joyous, and I think our highest tempos happen in the evening where it's a little cooler, and we couldn't do that in the heat of the day like at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. It just wouldn't work. Mm-hmm. And so it's been a gradual development. However, I think we'll reach the zenith. It will not go above that figure. It's just physically not advisable. The other item that you mentioned had to do with what aspect?
The future of the band.
The future of the band. You know, that's a very difficult thing to forecast due to the fact that my philosophy and the programming of shows and creativity, which I may say is the most difficult of all the arts in working with the band, that creativity, because it must have relevance. In other words, our shows are based upon human personalities, on human events, historical events, the philosophy of the time, the overall political scene of activities that involves radio, television, includes Broadway, includes everything that has to do with the life of American people. In other words, we try to depict those events and bring those out, and that's what brings about the empathy that the audience has with the band because of that relevance. You know, with the event of high technique, electronics, and what we see in the way of computerization and all of that, it is very difficult to forecast what the future will be for the band. In fact, in the next 10 years, the entire mode of operation and everything in the country is going to change because of the high tech. Bill Gates, in his forecast of the future, things are going to be coming about that have been just impossible to even think about.
Yes.
And so it's going to be a dramatic change, and I don't think anyone realizes what the future holds, because I never thought the day would come that we would do our arranging on the computer, or we would do the formation of our shows on the computer. But that's what we do now. We don't use the little metal men that I used to use when I started off in drawing up formations. And the computer does all of that now. Okay. The music arrangements as well as the format of the shows.
All right. Well, Doc, I want to thank you for taking the time out to just go through that chronicle of your life and the band's life.